Act 1 begins by introducing the death of the king who is Hamlet's father. However, while Hamlet is grieving, the queen decides to continue her life and remarries the king's brother. The next scene reveals the presence of the ghost of the king to Francisco, Horatio, and Bernardo. However, the ghost decides not to speak, in which this frustrates them. While that was occurring, Hamlet was still grieving and was being told that he must move on. He shouldn't stay stuck on the death because all fathers must die. Being told all this, Hamlet still faces his sadness. The pain causes him to want to commit suicide, but since it's against God's rules, he pushes that idea away. The next scene reveals how Polonius is reminding Ophelia that she must maintain control and resist Hamlet. The love he offers isn't what it seems like. While this is occurring, Laertes was on his way to France. Later on, Hamlet is told about the news of the ghost, which shocks him. Hamlet decides to go see this for himself. This time, the ghost finally decides to speak. He reveals to Hamlet that his own brother was the one who killed him. Ghost ends up requesting Hamlet to avenge him. As Hamlet makes a promise to get revenge for him, he wants to maintain what would just happen a secret and makes everyone present to swear on the sword not to tell anyone.
So a continuation of Hamlet, we're going on to Act 2 now. Hamlet Act 2 all starts off with Polonius asking Reynaldo to go spy on his son Laertes in France to make sure that he doesn't do anything stupid and destroy his family's name. And meanwhile, Ophelia, Polonius' other daughter, is telling everybody that Hamlet has gone crazy for her and that he's been acting a little strange and that there may or may not be something wrong with him. So Polonius decides to go and tell King Claudius and Queen Gertrude that your son is mad for my daughter, and if I'm wrong, you can kick me out of the castle, and basically saying that there's no doubt in his mind that Hamlet has gone crazy. So the king and queen decide to send Rosencrantz and Guildenstern to go spy on Hamlet to see if there's anything actually going on. Then he decides to tell him that he's telling Polonius that he's got some type of method to his madness, so they're not sure if he's actually going crazy or if he's just playing with all of their heads. So then Hamlet is like kind of confused. He's like, why are you guys being all so buddy-buddy? Are you guys spying on me? And then they decide to lie, obviously, and say that they're genuinely curious about his behavior and whatnot. So then the actors come in and Hamlet asks them if they can perform the murder of Gonzago, which is very relating to what he suspects the king did to his brother. So he's assuming that if he does watch the play of Gonzago, it'll make his uncle, or King Claudius, confess, and then that he can obviously have clear proof that Claudius did murder his father, King Hamlet. But he's got to make sure that the actors don't actually say like a word about it. Like it's just kind of between Hamlet and the actor, and that they don't overshow the play or undersell the play. That way it doesn't seem forced, but it also doesn't seem like, oh, it's just a normal play. You want it to be obvious enough so that King Claudius can see it, but not too obvious. And now on to Act 3. Act 3 actually has quite a lot to cover, so this one is going to be a little bit more extensive, but at the beginning, it's basically just saying, Rosencrantz and Guildenstern saying we can't figure out what Hamlet is going through, or if he's actually crazy or not. He won't actually tell us anything. He'll just kind of play with our heads and avoid our questions. So then they decide to ask Ophelia to ask Hamlet, and what's actually wrong. And then everyone else is actually wondering if Ophelia is the reason behind Hamlet going crazy, or if it's just kind of that's the excuse. Then he's telling them that they have to play right. Like, they have to do the play perfectly, and there's no other chance of doing it over. And they're like, okay, that's fine. We'll do it. So then Hamlet and Ophelia are watching the play, and Hamlet's starting to be a little dirty there and say, hey, let me lay on your lap. And then he's like, oh, not like that, but whatever. And then Ophelia decides to say, oh, you're being kind of naughty. And then Hamlet's like, oh, I know. So then, after the king gets murdered in the play, Claudius decides to say, cut, cut, everybody stop the play, because everyone's like, or he's getting a little uncomfortable with it for whatever reason. And Claudius, or Hamlet is thinking, oh yeah, this worked, definitely. He killed my father, right? So then he's like, Rosencrantz and Guildenstern pull up and they're like, dude, we're just like trying to be your homies. And then Hamlet's like, bro, I can see right through your BS. I can see exactly what you're trying to do here, and it's not going to work. So Polonius tells Hamlet that he's got to see the mother. And then it's like, why has Hamlet become the way he is? And he's like, so then Gertrude and Claudius come to the conclusion that we're going to send Hamlet to England. That way we don't have to worry about him anymore. But right before that happens, he finds Claudius praying and decides, I could kill him right now, but then he'd probably go to heaven, so I'm not. And then he goes and sees his mother Gertrude in her room, and then he's like, hey, what's wrong? Why are you acting so different? And then, in the background, behind a dresser or a cupboard or something, he hears a shuffle. So he pulls out his sword and stabs straight through it, and there happens to be Polonius, who is obviously now dead.
Now we're on to Act 4. Everyone's trying to figure out what's up with Hamlet and why he killed Polonius and where's Polonius. Claudius basically tells Guildenstern and Rosencrantz, yo, y'all better find out what Hamlet did with that body of Polonius. And they're like, oh, he done killed him. Rosencrantz is like, hey, yo, Hamlet, what'd you do with Polonius? Where he at? Then he's like, you're a fucking sponge because, like, you be trying to get information for Claudius, and that's it. So Claudius is like, what am I supposed to do with him now? I can't put him in jail because everybody loves him. So he tries to come up with a plan. So since Hamlet wouldn't tell Rosencrantz anything about Polonius' body, Claudius goes up to him and he's like, so where's the body? And then Hamlet is like, oh, he's being eaten by worms right now. So Claudius is like, okay, you know what? I'm done with you. We're sending you to England. And then he's like, he sends him to England, and he already has a plan to get him murdered over there. Hamlet is on his way to England, and then Fortinbras pulls up with his army, and he's like, we're just trying to pass by to England. And Hamlet's like, what the hell's going on here? So Ophelia's getting hella crazy, and then Claudius is like, oh my god, I gotta talk to Ophelia. He goes to talk to her, and she's just talking about flowers and talking about weird random stuff, and then she's like, oh, my father's gone, he's dead, and she's just sad. Laertes pulls up, he's back from France, and he has all these people with him, and they're like, oh, we want Laertes to be king. And then he goes up to Claudius, he's like, why'd you kill my father? And then Claudius is like, oh, wait a minute, your father's dead, but I didn't kill him. So then a sailor pulls up to Horatio, and he's like, I got 2 letters from Hamlet, and Hamlet is basically telling Horatio, I'm in trouble, dude. And then there's another letter to Claudius, and then the sailor goes to deliver that. So then Claudius receives this letter from Hamlet, and it basically says, I'm coming back. And then Claudius is freaking out. He's like, oh shit, we gotta kill this dude, because he's really coming back. So then Claudius pulls up to Laertes, and he's like, you know what, we gotta kill him, he's coming back. And then Laertes is mad, and he's like, oh, I want revenge for my father's death. And then they plan to kill Hamlet with a poison sword. So Ophelia starts getting hella crazy, and then she all of a sudden just drowns. And then Laertes is like, oh no, my sister's dead. Then we get to the end of Act 4, where the grave diggers are digging Ophelia's grave, and they're like, whoa, she's really getting Christian burial, even though she committed suicide, and that is not acceptable. And they're like, oh, that's just because she's rich, she got privileges. And that's basically the end of Act 4.
Okay, so now we have come to our final part of the play, Act 5. So, the scene opens up with some grave diggers, and they're digging a grave, and they're kind of just playing with the skulls, and they're just singing along as they dig, and it's just, when Hamlet sees them doing this, he starts expressing how, like, insensitive they're being, and just that, like, they have no respect towards the bodies, and, like, he's not happy with what they're doing. And then from there, a priest, Laertes, Gertrude, and Claudius come in for Ophelia's funeral. And at this time, like, Laertes is being really extra. He's doing over the top actions, and he has this like elaborate speech to like demonstrate his grief for Ophelia's death. And like then from there, Hamlet like comes in. He's like angry, like saying like stop being so extra. He's able to do that too. That like even if he was also upset for her death, like he's not doing any of that stuff. Um, and like Larry just gets angry and he's like calling him a rat and things like that, basically, and saying that he's gonna kill him. And he starts to fight him. And because like obviously Hamlet has killed his father, and he kind of blames him in a way for Ophelia's death as well, which makes him like really upset. And then from there we have like Hamlet and Horatio, they're just talking, and then like a knock comes to the door, and this like servant comes in, and he's just like talking with Hamlet. Hamlet's being really like extra right now, and like Horatio's telling him talk to him more simply, he's not gonna understand you. But basically he came to talk to him about Laertes, and like how he should fence him, or like they're challenging him to a duel to see who would win. And like Horatio was telling him like, oh my god, are you sure you want to do this? We could just tell him you're sick, we can do this another time. No, but Hamlet was like, nope, I'm gonna fight, I'm ready to do this. And then from there, then we have the duel. The duel commences, everyone's around, there's Claudius and Gertrude, they're there, and like they're talking about like the rules that they will have in place, and like what's gonna happen when in reality Laertes and Claudius have this plan to kill Hamlet, as they have poisoned Laertes' sword, so when he stabs him he will die. Essentially, if that doesn't work out, Claudius has this like goblet of poison, and like it's just this thing where it's like, oh yes, he's gonna drink it, and it's gonna for his like prosperity or whatever, like just kind of making stuff up for him to drink it. And then of course Gertrude was like, I want to drink that, and Claudius kind of tried to stop her, be like, oh no, that's not a good idea. But Gertrude's like, I can do whatever I want, I want to drink it. And then suddenly she dies, and everyone's kind of in shock, like, oh my god, help her. But the duel obviously is still going on, and so in the beginning, Hamlet stabs Laertes first, and like obviously now he has the poison, like he got stabbed by the poison, which is gonna start to kill him. And then and somehow like while they're fighting, their swords got switched, and the other one gets stabbed, and it's just kind of a thing where he's like, oh no, this isn't what was planned. And then from there, like Laertes starts dying, and like Hamlet begins to realize what's actually happening, and Laertes is like, oh my god, I've betrayed you, please forgive me, like I forgive you for what you've done. That like it's basically come to bite me in the ass what I did. And so now Hamlet takes the opportunity, he grabs the sword and stabs Claudius, essentially killing him as well, and he forces him to drink the rest of the poison just to like be completely sure that he's dead. And then while they're all dying, Horatio's like, give me the rest of the poison. I want to die. I don't want to be here anymore. And like Hamlet snatches it out of his hand, and like he drinks it for himself, cause he didn't want Horatio to drink it. And he was telling him like, well, as I'm dying, he's like explaining to him, I want you to tell my story the way it was. You need to explain to everything what happened. Explain to everyone what happened here, the true causes of everything, and like why it happened the way it happened. Because Hamlet was gonna be dead, and he wasn't gonna be able to tell anyone. And then Fortinbras just walks in. He's coming back from his little invasion he went to do. He just walks in and says, oh yep, I own this place now. And so basically he takes over like Denmark, and like he says that like, oh well, everything's his just because like that's the way it works. And then Horatio was like, okay, well, I'm just gonna let you all know what happened and set the story straight before like any speculations or false things start going around. And basically that is the end of Act 5. So they just kind of like honor Hamlet there at the end, saying like, oh, he would have been a great king if he would have had the chance to prove himself. And kind of like Fortinbras is actually like giving them honor, the respect that they deserve at the end there. And that is the end of Hamlet.
Something I learned about Hamlet was that no matter your status, everyone still ends up dead.
So, a continuation of Hamlet, we're going on to Act 2 now. Hamlet Act 2 all starts off with Polonius asking Reynaldo to go spy on his son Laertes in France to make sure that he doesn't do anything stupid and destroy his family's name. And meanwhile, Ophelia, Polonius's other daughter, is telling everybody that Hamlet has gone crazy for her and that he's been acting a little strange and that there may or may not be something wrong with him. So Polonius decides to go and tell King Claudius and Queen Gertrude that your son is mad for my daughter, and if I'm wrong, you can kick me out of the castle, and basically saying that there's no doubt in his mind that Hamlet has gone crazy. So the king and queen decide to send Rosencrantz and Guildenstern to go spy on Hamlet to see if there's anything actually going on. Then he decides to tell him that he's telling Polonius that he's got some type of method to his madness, so they're not sure if he's actually going crazy or if he's just playing with all of their heads. So then Hamlet is like kind of confused. He's like, why are you guys being all so buddy? Are you guys spying on me? And then they decide to lie, obviously, and say that they're genuinely curious about his behavior and whatnot. So then the actors come in and Hamlet asks them if they can perform the murder of Gonzago, which is very relating to what he suspects the king did to his brother. So he's assuming that if he does watch the play of Gonzago, it'll make his uncle, or King Claudius, confess, and then that he can obviously have clear proof that Claudius did murder his father, King Hamlet. But he's got to make sure that the actors don't actually say like a word about it. Like it's just kind of between Hamlet and the actor, and that they don't overshow the play or undersell the play. That way it doesn't seem forced, but it also doesn't seem like, oh, it's just a normal play. You want it to be obvious enough so that King Claudius can see it, but not too obvious.
So, what I learned from reading Hamlet is that life is full of uncertainties, and we can never be certain of what is the truth or what is right. Our only option is to base our actions and decisions around what we know and what we see.
Okay, so what did I learn, or like what did I get out of reading Hamlet or just Shakespeare? So I really enjoyed this play. I really enjoy Shakespeare's works. I kind of wish we would have read like the original text and kind of like went through it, because I don't know, I just find it interesting. But I like truly enjoyed reading Shakespeare just because like I kind of get like an idea of what was happening during that period time, or like that time frame. It's just like I really like history, so I just found that like really interesting. Like you learn a lot about that time period, not only kind of like what he talks about, although like the topics also that he brings up are very interesting, and even though they're more kind of relatable towards their times, they're still kind of like you still think about them and in ways relate to them. And it's just, they're very elaborate stories where you really have to look for the meaning from. Like sometimes I still don't get the point of some of his stories, because like, you know, in the end he kills everyone off, but like for what, you know? Like I don't really understand that part of it. But like I know that it's mostly for entertainment purposes for that time, which is like, you know, you kind of like understand aspects of that, where it's just like sometimes things aren't really there for a reason. They're just there for either entertainment or like for the story, for it to be able to go on. So I do truly enjoy reading Shakespeare works, and I hope I continue to learn more of his works later on.